Hi guys, welcome to this video and welcome to this channel. My name is Laura from PleiadianHealer.com. If you're new, welcome here. Definitely check out my website as well. So today I want to talk about Hawaii and what's going on in Hawaii, meaning the Hawaii fires. I want to offer a few different perspectives on the matter because I think there are always different perspectives to every single thing that's going on, especially in this specific case. And so we have at least three different perspectives. When you go more with the truther perspective or what's floating around with conspiracy theorists, you obviously have the perspective that the fires in Hawaii, specifically Maui and the Big Island, which are the two islands affected, that the government or just government in general caused the fires in order to destroy the land for the locals and to build it back up according to their own agenda. Whether or not this agenda are the smart cities or to make the locals even more poor or just in general to destroy sacred land, to put AI there, is probably a mix of it all, to be honest with you. And then, of course, we can't ignore the fact that you have Oprah Winfrey, and she has been in Maui for a little while. I'm not sure how many years, if it's been like over a decade or longer, but she just recently acquired a new property. She purchased some land, and the number that was thrown around earlier this year was $6.6 million that she spent on purchasing the land. So if you look at the perspective of numerology and numbers that they keep shoving in our face, 6.66666, the satanic number of 66, you get the idea. And then you have the perspective of the 88 number, the 88 portal, which kind of ties into the entire Lionsgate portal, which I've covered extensively on this channel, and I've been covering this since 2020 on. This year specifically already had 3 or 4 or 5 videos on it, so definitely go through the playlist, the Lionsgate portal. And what's interesting about it is that this entire fire blew up exactly around the time that the Lionsgate portal was opened. The area code of all Hawaiian islands is 808. So you have 88 in this one too. Did New Agers feed into the Masonic rituals of igniting the fire further? And how would that be? Well, if you imagine that everything has energy, pretty much every single thing, including yourself, including everything around you, you as a New Ager, if you participated in this portal, you may have very well fed into the agenda of the controllers, of the Freemasons, of whoever is behind all of this, and ignited the fire even more through the help of your meditation, your manifestations, your prayers, and all of that. Because like I already said in all those videos, the energy that you put into this state and into this portal, no matter if you've done it before or after, some people are talking about, to open up from 726 to 812 or whatever. No matter when you did it during this time, that energy has to go somewhere. And so it's kind of like someone got that energy, collected all that energy, which you thought you would be using for your own manifestations, which is really not the case, because it was a mass meditation event during several days, but specifically the 8/8 date. And that energy had to go somewhere, and it could have very well fueled that fire even more. And I know a lot of New Cagers got triggered when I said this on my other social media accounts. They couldn't understand how that would be possible. But everything's energy, no matter if it's your thoughts, your words, your manifestations, everything. And in a similar way, if people would actually come together en masse and mass meditate or mass manifest rain, it would probably work. So why don't the New Cagers do just that, is my question. It looks like if it's not their own manifestation, if it doesn't tie into their own life, their own agenda, these New Agers actually don't care much for general world events or general, like the people who it affects. Or what would be the reason why you don't actually drum your group together and try to mass manifest rain in the areas of Hawaii that are still affected? That's a rhetoric question to the New Agers. I actually don't need an answer for that. Because what I've really found over the years of dealing with all these New Agers and all these people who get triggered when you call out the Lionsgate portal, when you call out all these gurus and spiritual ego leaders, they don't, if it doesn't affect their own life, if it doesn't affect their own manifestation, if it actually affects like a really poor country or really affects an area that needs their well wishes, they don't really care. Because if it's not something that gets them more money or more abundance or more love, more romance, whatever, they can give less F's about it. And so who is egotistical here? Me for calling it out and for calling you out on your BS? Or you who are watching it and who are getting so triggered that you actually have to comment some really nasty stuff below all my social media? Another rhetoric question. I don't need an answer from New Agers in regards to that. So I want to offer another perspective, and a really important perspective in regards to what's going on in Hawaii. And I actually think this is the most important perspective, which often gets forgotten, especially if you are dealing with truthers and you're dealing with New Agers who always have their own things, you know, like the truthers focus so much on the smart cities and the AI, and all of that is very valid and is very true. And of course, we all know that they want to build up AI all around us. They're already doing it. They've been doing that for hundreds and thousands of years. It really got skyrocketed with the industrialization. And I do want to have a different video on it and talk about how AI can ruin your life or is ruining your life in the form of AI being people, AI being the noise around you, AI being every single aspect of your life, and them really converting that, like converting every aspect of your life into that too. But the perspective that I want to offer on Hawaii is that land carries energy, and you can feel that. You can feel it in pockets all over the world. Hawaii, of course, as well. I myself have been to Hawaii 2 times, and I've been to Oahu, I've been to Kauai. Kauai is, I think, one of the smaller islands. And it's the one that's actually the roughest as well, because it has like all the cliffs and the canyons and everything. I personally would love to go to Maui at one point. I would love to go to the Big Island, but I'm very grateful I've got to see those other 2 islands in my life before. And I can tell you, even if you're not spiritual, which at one point, the first time I went to Hawaii, I would have not considered myself spiritually open or anything because I was pretty young still, you will feel the energy of Hawaii. And you will feel that in certain parts of the world. You can feel it in certain sites in Mexico, in Guatemala. You can most likely feel it in the Amazon forest, at least I would imagine so. You can feel it in the Middle East. You can feel it in certain parts all over the world. Indonesia, most likely too. So all these sites carry energy, and Hawaii specifically has a very strong healing energy, more than any other site, I would even say. Maui is sacred land, and sacred land is meant to be visited for healing or insight, maybe as a refuge when there's turmoil in your life. But these sites are not necessarily meant for you to stay for decades or longer than that, the way that people are turning these sites into. Sedona is another one. So the thing about Sedona has so many vortexes that it is such an intense place. And a lot of people can actually not deal with that. And that's how we also get this entire infiltration energy over there, which I talked about in other videos. To me, Sedona will always be a healing place because I've had just so many experiences there. I know I've had past lives in that area too. What Native Americans say about Sedona, and it's most likely similar with Maui too, Sedona was never meant as a place to live. It was always meant as a place to kind of travel through or to visit in certain aspects of your life. When you're in a certain period of your life and you kind of need help or a bit more spirituality, those are the sites you visit to gain clarity and all of those things. And so Maui obviously has a very different energy from Sedona. I'm not comparing them at all. I'm not comparing Joshua Tree to Sedona and all that, but Maui has a healing energy from my understanding. Maui is like, the way I feel into it, it's a very loving energy. So most likely also kind of like a honeymoon island for those people. Certain parts of Oahu also feel that way. Kauai, on the other hand, feels very different, but it also has a very strong healing component to it. And it's never or very rarely meant to actually be lived on these type of places. What I got specifically in regards to Maui could be the same for the Big Island. I didn't tap into the Big Island that much because Maui is really the one that's affected the most. Greed took over that land, and it did take over the lands, especially in the past few years, 2020 and on. So, of course, it's not much of a surprise that a disaster like this happens. And why does Maui or Hawaii hurt so much? Because it's basically the beating heart of Earth. It carries profound energy, and you can for sure feel that when you just visit these places. Another thing about Hawaii is that it actually has fire energy. So you have all those volcanoes there. Wherever you have a volcano, including Iceland, including Guatemala, including Hawaii, there's a strong fire component to it. And when that fire component gets abused and misused the way it did during these fires, when someone or something most likely caused those fires, or, put something in it to ignite it even further, some chemical component to it, is going to be explosive. And that's exactly what happened. It burned down so much and it destroyed so much. But Maui in itself has the fire in it. So I want to read something that you can find online. First of all, you have Pele or Pele. And Pele is, in Hawaiian religion, is the goddess of volcanoes and fire and the creator of the Hawaiian Islands. It's often referred to as Madame Pele or Tutu Pele, so that's a female component. She's notable for her contemporary presence and cultural influence as an enduring figure from ancient Hawaii. So that's number one. Then you have the actual name Maui, which is also Maori mythology. So what's also interesting is that Maui and Maori, I was talking about this in my Telegram group because there was a person from New Zealand. The Maori are the natives of New Zealand, but there's a huge connection between New Zealand and Hawaii because the person who discovered New Zealand, the white settler, how they call him, was his name Cook? I think his name was James Cook, if I'm not mistaken. He discovered New Zealand, and then he actually died in Hawaii a few years after that. And they're both in the Pacific, obviously, but they're not super close to each other. But there's still somehow this connection between the Pacific Islands natives of Hawaii and New Zealand is what it feels like. Most likely also other islands that are in between. So Maui, according to Maori mythology and other Polynesian traditions, is a culture hero and a trickster, famous for his exploits and cleverness. He possessed superhuman strength and was capable of shapeshifting into animals such as birds and worms. According to the mythology, he was born prematurely and cast into the ocean by his mother, where the waves formed him into a living baby. He was discovered by his grandfather and later went to live with his siblings. Maui is credited with catching a giant fish, which would become the North Island of New Zealand and all of that. His last trick, which led to his death, involved the goddess Hine Nui Tipo. And that's a different mythology that goes behind it. But basically, Maui is the name of the island. Maui. It's spelled a little bit different. And Maui supposedly is related to the fire and the fire goddess family. Pele had siblings, and descendants and all of that. So Maui is supposedly related to all of that. And he's called a trickster, which is also interesting that all of this kind of exploded around 8/8. And people who are just not there yet, they think this is climate change, obviously. You know, I've read it on people's accounts who are there, and they're like, oh yeah, vote differently, it's climate change. And it's very, very clear that the amount of destruction we're seeing in these pictures, right? Like, this has nothing to do with climate change at all anymore. Like, this has to do with chemical components and everything. So people are being tricked, obviously, and people who know they're being tricked, they're trying to get to the root of all of this, but I feel there are just different perspectives on it. So let's return to the perspective that every land carries an energy. You know, I understand that people are upset. But you also, like, especially the people who are living there, you know, there are natives that live there, and then there are locals who are not natives, but locals who have kind of, call them white people, call them whatever, who kind of grew up there, or who maybe have been there for like 20, 30, 40 years. And then you have the people that literally just moved to Hawaii in 2020 and on, especially from California, especially from the West Coast, also from New York. So they moved from these pretty rich areas, like rich cities, and it's absolute greed what's happening right there. You know, Oprah Winfrey buying something for 6.6 million. It's insanity. This is sacred land, and you're not supposed to be living there. You're not supposed to be buying it unless you have a very strong connection to that land, meaning ancestral energy, or unless you actually honor the land, which a lot of people don't. No matter where they move to, they do not honor the energy of the land. And then they wonder why their house is, you know, haunted with spirits, or why a flood kind of carries their home away, those type of things. Yeah, of course, there are other people causing all these disasters, as we know, but I really strongly feel that greed has overtaken, especially Maui, also the other islands, because Big Island definitely blew up too, because it was one of the cheaper islands out of all those islands. And it's overtaken all of that. And this is just another sign by the land itself. You know, this is not how the land wants to continue to live. So you have to ask yourself, if you're getting upset by this video and you live in Hawaii right now, if you're not a native, did you move there for the money? Like, I know people who moved there because they wanted to be a luxury realtor. Is that really the right motive to move to Hawaii? Because that is pure greed, in my opinion. Or did you move there for the healing energy? And if you move there for the healing energy, did you get out of it what you could? Because everything happens for a reason. Alcohol, drugs, homelessness do not belong on sacred land. And if the natives are abusing it, you will have weird energy. When I was in Kauai, there were pockets on that island where I literally felt everything had been abused. You know, they brought drugs in there, they brought alcohol in there, also the natives, the actual ancestral natives. So Kauai, personally, when I went in 2018, it gave me the most healing I could have ever feel and could have ever asked for. But it already felt a bit infiltrated in 2018 too. And there's a strong NASA component in all these islands, a strong military component as well, which I want to point out. And you can for sure feel that everywhere. You talk about the fake alien invasion, all those things, you know, you can definitely see that happen in Hawaii, where you have NASA bombarding the national parks, especially in Waimea Canyon and Kauai. So I personally just wanted to offer this perspective, and the video is going to be a bit on the shorter side. And, you know, I just want to say these are the three causes, or the three perspectives. I see the third one as the most important one. Energy has land. And if you do not respect the energy that the land carries, if there's a lack of respect, if it's become infiltrated, if it's become overtaken by greed, as it has in Maui and other parts of Hawaii, you're going to feel that in the lands. And a fire on land that already carries so much fire components and fire energies, that's actually ruled by Pele, which is the fire goddess. Now, I'm not saying this fire goddess exists or not, it's just a symbol, you know? So there's a symbol of fire on this island already, with the volcanoes, with everything going on. And if you put more fire in there, it's going to be quite explosive. All right, I hope this helped. Let me know what you think. And I do feel for everyone who is affected. Absolutely. It looks like a horrible situation. I personally do know people who are there right now too. The people I know believe it's climate change, which is absolute insanity if you just walk through all of that and see how the government's reacting, but to each their own. You can't shake people up and wake them up. That's what I noticed after the past few years. People have to just get it. And if they still don't get it after 3 years later, just got to move on to the people who do understand what's going on. And I feel a lot of people are watching this channel, so that's good. All right. Have a good one. Hope this helps.